We are now returning to the newsroom.
Disaster struck suddenly this morning at the small Welsh coal mining village of Aberfan, near Merthyr Tydfil.
At 9:15, on the last morning of lessons before half-term, Pantglas Junior School was buried underneath a mountain of coal waste. The scale of the loss, 116 children and 28 adults, is still difficult to comprehend half a century later. What happened at Aberfan was one of the greatest disasters in the modern history of Wales, indeed the modern history of the United Kingdom. And it's important to get one thing clear. This was no freak of nature. It was a man-made disaster. It was entirely foreseeable. And it happened because of a combination of negligence, arrogance, and incompetence. One of those who survived the disaster, her life still overshadowed by the events of 50 years ago, is Gaynor Madgwick. She was 8 at the time and lost her brother Carl and sister Marilyn on that day. She's since written a book about her experiences. We met in the Memorial Garden on the site of the old school in Aberfan.
The ceiling of the school had come in and it landed on half the children, and I had a radiator that had come off the wall and it literally landed on my lap. I just remember looking at another friend of ours who had literally tried to climb up through the roof, which was on top of the children. And she said, I'm going to get help, I'm going to get help. You know, she was only 8, bless her. I was whisked away in the ambulance to St Tydfil's Hospital, and I remained there, isolated I feel, for over 3 months. And it was then in the evening time that I was told that my brother, my sister had died, and all my friends had died as well.
Within weeks of the disaster, an official tribunal was set up under the Welsh judge Edmund Davies, and it started in robust fashion.
Well, I should hate to think that anybody would connect me with any whitewashing exercise.
But getting straight answers from the National Coal Board, the public body which owned the mines, proved a very different matter. The chairman of the National Coal Board was Lord Robens, and he denied any responsibility for the disaster and kept on insisting that it could not have been foreseen.
We have our normal procedures for ensuring that pits are safe, but I'm bound to say that we have no procedure that tells us that there is a spring deep down under a mountain.
This is the site of the old Merthyr Vale colliery. This is where the coal waste was put in trams and then sent across the valley and piled high on the mountains opposite. And those tips used to dominate the landscape. And there was plenty of evidence, based on previous incidents, that piling this waste on wet mountainsides was an exceptionally risky and dangerous thing to do. And yet, those warnings were ignored. By the time the report was published, the National Coal Board had been forced to admit that the disaster was foreseeable. It was blamed unequivocally for what had happened, but no one was disciplined or sacked.
I only wish that Lord Robens was here today. They should have been sent to jail, lost their jobs.
But the battle was far from over. There were still coal tips above Aberfan, and people quite naturally wanted them gone. But no one was ready to pay. Not the government, not the Coal Board. The families lobbied the Welsh office in Cardiff demanding help. What they got instead from the Welsh Secretary George Thomas was a bill. He wanted the local community to use their charity fund to make a contribution.
Of course, they will pay what they can afford, but the scheme will depend on what they pay.
It took 30 years for the people of Aberfan to regain the money they'd lost. It was finally repaid by the Welsh Government, and today the gardens and memorials of the village have been restored, giving the families the sense of justice that they surely deserve.
Collectively, we've been able to 50 years get through it as a family. I've always said Aberfan is a family. We've shared our thoughts and feelings. So many good things have come out of Aberfan, and you have to think like that. You know, they are courageous, courageous people.